So my love thought, well, why wouldn't you want to see the Book of Mormon musical? Well, it's kind of poking fun at Mormonism. You're an ex-Mormon. Seems like a perfect combination. But really, nah, just doesn't hit me like that. Tingles with flyby. Daily ASMR videos. Hello, my tinklings. And welcome back to part 2 of my CES Letter adventure. I'm probably actually not going to talk that much about the CES letter this time because it's actually come at a really interesting time for me. There's been a few things floating around, so I'm going to talk about a few of those other things. So, the first is that I've been reading this book. I don't remember the name of it, but it's set in Utah, and it's about a trans man who was in a bishopric, which would be kind of a big no-no. Anyway, who gets murdered. So I'm about 100 pages or so into that book. And it's been really interesting because it's written by a Mormon lady, but she must have kind of, I don't know what her leanings are exactly, because because it's tackling things like transgenderism and gay issues and that sort of thing, but much more lovingly than I think the church as a whole generally does. So I don't know what her perspective is. But anyway, I thought, well, the fact that they're tackling a trans man in a bishopric sounds interesting. So I'm reading that. But so it's been very interesting because it is written, as I said, from a Mormon perspective, not ex-Mormon, not like me, not my perspective, more Mormon perspective. And it's been interesting to read that because it really just puts me right back into that mind space. But I have my current, understanding and intellect and questioning and critical thinking. And it's allowing me to kind of reflect on the patterns of thinking that I had when I was Mormon, but also the things that I didn't really pay a lot of attention to that were always there when I was Mormon. So I didn't have anything necessarily that specific, but that's been an interesting experience, and it's kind of got Mormon things on my brain. And then the second one was when I went to, the Book of Mormon musical is coming to Adelaide soon, and we were driving in. My love was driving me in to go to dinner with my friends, and we saw it, and he's like, "Oh, you interested to see that?" And I said, "No, I'm not interested at all." And he thought that was really weird that I'm not interested in that. And so I've kind of been, thinking about that a bit. And it was actually when I was at dinner that I was like, oh, yeah, that's partially why I'm not that interested in it. So the Book of Mormon musical is actually written by the makers of South Park. So the first thing is, I've never really been a big fan of South Park. Part of it was, it made me feel very uncomfortable when I was Mormon, but it's not something that I kind of always wished that I could watch type of thing. There were some things where I was like, oh, if I was a Mormon, I'd definitely be into that. Which, I've watched now, but that was never one of them. It doesn't really have a humor that resonates with me. So that's one thing. And then I guess the second thing is that there was this episode of South Park that dealt with Mormon issues. And as a member of the church at the time, it made me feel very uncomfortable. It made me feel somewhat attacked as well. And I've never actually watched that, but that experience hasn't really left me, And it's important to me, I guess, how members of the church will feel. I mean, lots of my family and I have friends who are Mormon, and so that does really matter to me. So I understand from an ex-Mormon perspective the need to vent and create in those sort of ways, and probably living in a community that you're a minority of, you probably would need to as well, which is what the creators of South Park are. I don't really have a problem with them creating it, but it doesn't jive with me, and it doesn't feel good to me. It feels a bit icky. And it's also because it's not necessarily based on fact and real experiences. So, because I know that they do things about missionaries, and I guess I just wouldn't want, if it was my nephew, who in the future I said will go on a mission, I wouldn't want him thinking that I like to poke fun at missionaries or that sort of thing, because that's not really what I'm about. I'm more about, hey, I'd like people to know what the truth is, actual truth, to actually understand fact, history, and that sort of thing. But mocking people to me is not really a good way to achieve that. And so it doesn't really feel good to me. It's also, I do have part of I was raised Mormon. I was Mormon from when I was born until I was 25. It was a huge part of my identity for a long period of time, and was an important part of my formation. So a lot of those cultural aspects that have nothing really to do with Joseph Smith or anything like that are things that are close to me. And so, I'm not a Mormon. I'm not Mormon really at all, but I'm not 100% not a Mormon, if that makes any sense. It's a part of my identity, or past identity, I guess. So, that was the second thing. And the third thing is the more personal and upsetting thing, which I haven't really spoken about before. But with everything else, with the CES letter and everything else, I figured, what the hell, let's go for it. So, yesterday, Saturday, so I talked to my mom for a week, and on Thursday she told me she was going down to Florida to, my stomach is feeling sick just talking about this. May end up crying too, hopefully not. So she told me that she was going to Florida to be with my stepbrother, my oldest stepbrother. I have the two younger ones are very lovely. I love my two stepbrothers. I don't love the oldest one. I don't. Real recap on my life here. So I lived with my mom. My parents got divorced when I was 5. I lived with my mom. My mom got remarried when I was 12. And we lived in New York for a year. It was just me, my mom, my stepdad, my sister, the 4 of us. And I lived with my dad. I moved in with my dad when I was 13. That was a neighbor edit, not emotional edit. Don't worry, I'm giving you unfiltered. When I was 13, and then, so I was living, it was just me and my dad. We lived in Maryland, and my mom lived in New York, the 3 of them, and then my oldest stepbrother moved in with them. So I went to visit one time, and we were hanging out together, and he had this thing where you could listen in on cordless phones, and we were listening in on my sister talking to her boyfriend at the time. And so I kind of knew that was the wrong thing to do, which is why I never really actually told anybody about this, was because it connected to that. And also, so we were also kind of snuggling together, we were laying next to each other, and he was holding me, which I was comfortable with. And it felt, I was 14, I didn't really, because he told me that his dad would be very upset if he found us, but I didn't really understand why. I was really confused. Being older now, I can understand why, but at then I was just kind of like, oh yeah, we're just physical affection, there was nothing sexual about anything that we were doing. And then we'll back up too. So I was 14, he was, I don't remember how much older, he was definitely 19 at the youngest, but 19, 20, 21, 22, so older than me. 82. 80. Yeah, I think he's 8. He's definitely, because I was 13. No, he was not 19, because that's how old my second stepbrother would have been. He was at 20, 21, 22. Yeah, as I said, somewhere around that range. So he's significantly older than me. But so I'm just kind of going along because I don't really understand what's happening. 14 years old, then I remind you. And I remember what I was wearing. I had my Star Wars Episode 1 t-shirt on and my Dorky Mormon shorts. And don't worry, there's no sexual assault. Well, yeah, there's no sexual assault here. It's not rape or anything. So I just want to let people know we're not going that far, but it is unwanted touching. Anyway, but I didn't put a trigger warning on this, so I want people to know. So we're getting into this, that we're not going that far down the rabbit hole, if that's going to be upsetting for people. Anyway, so then we were sitting on this bed, which actually was in my old bedroom as well, so it's been an interesting spot. But anyway, and he lifted up the front of my shirt and then put his hand on my stomach. And I felt very uncomfortable with it. I think I just froze when that happened. I just froze. And then I don't remember if it was that one first. I don't remember the order here. I remember him doing that, and he also then put his hand on my bum, like down on my bum where I didn't want it, but that was over my clothes. And so he did that, and I just kind of froze, and I didn't know what to do. And so basically, as soon as I could, I said I needed to go to the bathroom, and then just left the room, and basically didn't stay alone with him again after that. But I didn't tell anybody about that for years. But I did tell my mom a few years ago, and I told her I didn't necessarily. So he has a kid. Does he have more than one? I don't know. Anyway, he has a kid. So obviously this is my mom's grandchild. So there's things going on there. It's my stepdad's son. Things going on there. So, I'm not necessarily expecting her to, she's in a difficult position. But when she told me that, I did take it as a bit of a kick to the guts. And pretty upset about that. Anyway, so that was my other thoughts going after that had been, about him. So the other thing was on the Mormon side. I'm like, okay, so he's going to the temple, so he must have repented. Because I actually spoke to him. It was the last time I spoke to him a few years ago. I talked to him about it, how he had touched me inappropriately, and he feigned not remembering. Maybe he doesn't, I don't know. I mean, he was with a lot of people, so maybe he doesn't remember, but I think he probably does. Anyway, but so he feigned not remembering, and I said I had enough problems because me and my sister were having big drama at the time. So he apologized that I was having other problems, but I thought, hey buddy, you need to apologize for what you've done. Anyway. So he was receiving his endowments and going to be sealed on Saturday. And I don't like him. Because that's the thing, 20 is much older than 14, but I understand it's still young. And so if we could have an open conversation about something that happened, then I might have been able to kind of build a bridge and, come to some sort of uneasy, but, I can be around you, but if you're going to deny you even did anything to me, I'm not going to be happy with that. Or say you don't remember. And then apologize for something that has nothing to do with you. I'm sorry about your other stuff, but I'm not sorry for the thing that I did to you. Anyway. So I haven't spoken to him since then. And it ended up the reason I ended up telling my mom was because she invited me and my love to go over there for some weekend or something that they were all having, that she wanted us all to be able to be there, and I said, I don't want to be around my oldest stepbrother because of this. So that was probably the end of my mom's hopes and dreams of her having a happy family anymore. But, I mean, I am the one who was, but anyway, I'm sure there'll be plenty of people who come in and think I should get over it. I don't agree with you, so sorry. Anyway, so those are the things been swirling through my head. Anyway, I was thinking about, the Mormon church. What they think about inappropriate touching that hasn't been repented of. Because I certainly don't think that touching your stepsister like that when she's 14 years old and you're an adult it's definitely not what the Mormon church I know would be a fan of. So I thought about, calling a bishop and telling them, but then I was like, I don't even want to engage that power structure. I don't respect, I don't recognize that power, so there's no point in letting it exist. My power is my own, to make my own decisions of who I associate with and what I do. But anyway, so all those things have been swirling around, and then I read the CES letter and my mind just... So we really may go down a little bit of an ex-Mormon hole here. I've been watching so many videos about it, and I really want to, join in on the conversation because it is an important part for my past identity, and it's an important part for me to kind of break down in myself and also figure out what about it makes it so compelling, because that's what's really interesting to me is you read what actually happened with Joseph Smith and all of that, and I'm like, oh, how did it get to be what it is today? Which, well, it's not massive, but millions of people actually believe this stuff, so that's a lot of stuff. There's lots of people who, because there's all these splinter groups that are a lot smaller that don't have quite that same weight that come from, Mormonism. So it's made me really interested about, what are the actual mechanics that have made this one the most successful Mormonism, first of all, but what makes that sort of thinking proliferate and be successful and, like, these facts disappear, and I wonder if that'll kind of disappear a bit more in the modern day with the advent of the internet. I'm hoping so, at least, because it's a big waste of time. But then I guess the other side that I've been thinking about is that you show the CES letter to lots of Mormons and it will not change their minds. And it's kind of how you actually say in Mormonism, which is, you have to have an open heart to receive the truth. But in some ways, it doesn't matter what facts are put before you. If you're not actually open to finding the answers, you'll find some sort of justification for why that's okay. Particularly when it's so tied to your identity and when it's so tied to who you are as a person and how you feel. That's what I think anyway. Which to me is, because that's what I think, I'm like, well, I look at this, but I'm like, if I read this when I was Mormon, I still think I could. Like, it is very compelling. It's a lot altogether. But I still feel like, well, most of these pieces I knew on some level, just not altogether. And that's what, for me, I'm like, well, for me, I felt like I was able to leave the church because I moved countries. So I was moving countries, starting a whole new life. So then leaving the church became easy. It just became, okay, now I can actually look at this on its merits rather than having the connective tissue of all my family around me, all my friends, all my neighbors, all my coworkers when I lived in Utah. Or, that identity you build up even before that when I was in high school as, being the person set apart from everyone else, different from everyone else. It's like, I think about that, I'm like, well, that's a huge part of my identity as well, is being the different person, being the unique person. Anyway, it's really interesting. So, but that's what I understand is, so that's what really interests me, is what conditions allow the emotional space for those facts to actually come filter through and make a difference. And I think a lot of it has to do with timing. But yeah, fascinates me. So I'm very interested in that. So I'm definitely thinking about looking into that more, talking about it a little bit more on my channel as well. Obviously, we'll still have mainly lots of Tingledom. That's always going to be my focus. I want to relax you first and foremost, but I think it can also be engaging to think about things as well. And I know a lot of people really did find my videos about Mormonism quite interesting, so we may dabble a bit more in that area. So those are my experiences. My mind is still blown about the CES letter. It'll take me a while to unpack all of that, so we'll have plenty to talk about. Thank you for joining me. Let me know your thoughts, as always.